This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Karen.
Sorry.
And no, that's okay. No, that's all right. Don't sweat the small stuff. But we certainly want to provide this information to communities on the ground. Um, one or two highlights. I just want to turn it over after we do introductions, turn it over to Karen and then Jeff. So community planning is involved here. Basically, what's going to happen is there is a online portal which communities can apply through to receive the planning services. For those of you who are familiar with the state's District Local Technical Assistance or DLTA program, where you apply actually directly to MRPC and we give you a bucket of services. These aren't cash grants. It's planning to do a charrette or a full-blown plan on a digital equity plan to help people who are disenfranchised get access to the internet and online services. Again, which Karen and Jeff will explain more. So that's my commercial. There's one more person signing in. I'd like to start going around the Hollywood Squares, and I'm going to ask people to demute, name, title, affiliation. They'll go to the next one. Karen, may I start with you, please?
Sure. Karen Chapman, Planning and Development Director, MRPC.
Thanks, Karen. Bob, are you able to demute and tell us who you are? If not, Trevor can do it when he demutes. No? Okay, Bob. I'll ask Trevor to introduce himself and you, if that's okay, sir. Trevor, would you be so kind?
Yeah, Trevor Beauregard, Director of Community Development Planning for the City of Gardner, and Bob Schwartz is also on. He's a planning board member for the city.
Great. And he's our commissioner, Gardner's commissioner to the MRPC, which is great.
Yes.
So great to have you both here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jonathan, would you go ahead, please?
All right. Jonathan Voss, I'm a regional planner at MRPC.
Thanks very much. Tyler, you're up, sir.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Godin, and I am also a regional planner at MRPC.
Very good. Melanie, are you able to demute and give us name, rank, and serial number?
Indeed, I am. So for today's purposes, I am the administrative assistant to the Board of Selectmen in Phillipston.
Melanie, welcome and thank you very much. Steve, you're up, sir. Thank you.
Sorry, I had it and I forgot it. Steve Castle with Templeton and Templeton Community TV, and interested in finding out more about the digital equity grants and perhaps any opportunities. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Ryan, you're up, sir.
Hello, I'm Ryan Doherty. I'm with MRPC. I'm also a regional planner.
Thanks, Ryan. Jeff?
Jeff LeGros with the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, principal planner here.
Thanks, Jess. Tracy, always great to see your friendly face. And you're up next.
Sure. I'm Tracy Murphy, and I'm the town planner in Westminster.
Very good. Nice to see you again, Tracy. And Deb, you're up next, please.
Hi, I'm Deb D'Amico, and I am the chair of the Royalston Select Board.
Welcome, Deb. Thank you for attending today. Veronica, you are batting cleanup right now for introductions.
I am. I'm Veronica Kell, and I'm the Select Board Chair in Townsend.
Wonderful. You're already doing something that I don't think we need to tell anybody after 3 years of COVID, or just about, but you're already self-muting, so when you're not speaking, please mute. And I will be going offline and muting in just a few seconds, because I'm going to get some hot chocolate for my throat. So I'd like to turn this over to Karen. And Karen, would you just then turn it over to Jeff at the appropriate time? We'd like to explain this program and then do Q&A after. Karen, it's your program. And Jeff, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. Why is it so tiny? Can you all see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe it'll work here. I don't seem to have access to it. Is it tiny for you guys?
Yes, it's
you're in
not
the
the full
mode of
screen.
like slide sorter mode, not like the presentation, but it's legible. It's readable.
That better?
There we
Perfect.
go.
There you go.
All right. Thank you all for coming to our inaugural MRPC Lunch and Learn series. Today we're going to talk about municipal digital equity planning, as Glenn said. Um, the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, which is part of the Massachusetts Technology Collaborative, has created a municipal digital equity planning program. There's $50 million available in this program, which was funded by federal ARPA and Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act money. Um, so the goals of this digital equity program are first to guide municipal decision making and investments that will increase access, adoption, and usage of the internet for the populations most impacted by COVID-19. And secondly, to prepare municipalities to submit grant proposals to existing or forthcoming state or federal programs to support digital equity activities. So what is digital equity? According to the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. And, just a little side note, if you think of like seniors who are now doing medical appointments online and they need to have a computer or a laptop or a tablet in order to do that because they're isolated in their home, or students, as you know, in the pandemic who didn't have internet access and still needed to do classes. So that's sort of the, you know, uh, populations that we're looking for: veterans, seniors, anybody who has no access. So, what are the three pillars of digital equity? First is internet access. Is it affordable? Is it available? And so, this planning will discover populations in your community that are struggling with this. Second is devices. Do people even have devices? Can they afford devices? And so this planning process will discover that, and there'll be opportunities for low-cost devices in this program. And third, digital literacy. Do people even know how to use the devices if they had one? So this process will discover who needs skills training to use the internet and devices. So the process for the program will be for the municipality to apply for planning funds from MBI, and there's a site here, and then you choose. So the municipality either does like a charrette, where it would be like a full day of stakeholders talking about programs that you have, people that are missing access or affordability. Or you can choose a full planning service, which would be more like a master plan chapter. We would go more in depth, do some mapping, and really get into the nitty gritty of everything. And that would be probably a 3 to 6 month process. Once you apply, MBI will send you a list of consultants that are working in your region, of which MRPC is one. You would choose your consultant, and then contracts would get executed between the consultant and MBI. So the community doesn't need to contract. Then the consultant that you choose would meet with all your stakeholders to explain the process and how it's going to work, depending on the charrette or the inclusive planning service. And you would include all the unserved and underserved residents that town officials believe there are. Then you do the charrette or the planning process. And then the results of all of this would be a digital equity plan for your community that says what all the there'll be recommendations that are, we as consultants, will work with uh, other consultants who can provide access, affordability, and all of those things. So we would provide recommendations to the municipality on how you can solve all of the issues that you come up with. And this plan also can be used for funds that are already in place to fix all of the issues that a municipality may have. So that's it for my quick introduction to digital equity. I'm going to stop sharing now, if I can. Okay. So I know that was quick, and if anybody has any questions before I pass it over to Jeff. Don't see any. Okay.
Oh,
Jeff,
wait, I
are
have
you?
a question. I have a question. Sorry, I'm
Sure,
sorry.
sure. Go ahead.
So we are actually already in the process with Comcast of doing a cable build out for 3 residences who have absolutely no access whatsoever. So where we have already started this process, where would we fall in with the MBI?
I would say that you can still apply because you've already started doesn't mean anything to them because they want to use their consultants because they've all been, MRPC, myself and my 4 planners who are on the screen here went to a 2-day training with MBI to learn about digital equity and the process of doing this. So I don't think there's any issue with Phillipston applying, even though you've started.
Okay, thank you.
Because it's more than just cable, there's an MBI program that's happening already that's discovering where there's no service of broadband, and that's separate from this program, but may bleed into this program when the results and the recommendations are implemented.
Hi, Karen. Steve Castle with Templeton. What do you mean by underserved residents? I know what unserved residents are, but what about underserved? Is there a definition?
It's populations that typically don't have services. I don't know how to explain it other than wait a minute.
I think part of, so with the broadband access, there are some areas that aren't getting the maximum bandwidth that is considered to be a minimum requirement, especially in today's day and age where we're both sending information out and taking information in with things like exactly what we're doing right now, with Zoom calls and GoToMeetings. There are a lot of people that are, even though they have broadband, their connection isn't at the minimum bandwidth that it needs to be at to meet a minimum standard and to be able to do these types of things. So underserved communities has different definitions, but when you're referring to broadband, there may be some people that have access, but that particular the bandwidth that they're receiving in their location is less than what it needs to be. That's sort of another way of looking at underserved with broadband.
Thank you, Jeff.
Is there a
And
way of finding that out?
well, by testing people's internet speed. So if I tested my speed right now, I'm paying for 100 Mbps, million whatever bytes per second, but I test and I only get 15. So that's underserved. Like I'm not getting all that I'm paying for. So when I'm working, I get glitches trying to connect to MRPC to do my work. It takes longer to open things. So that's
I
underserved.
understand that, but wouldn't the cable company be able to provide data on what it's getting for upload download speeds? or
Yeah,
somebody,
so
or an independent auditor or something, so we know if, hey, 90% of our town is covered by Comcast, but are some people underserved because they're the last few feet on the last mile?
So as part of the planning process, we will be collecting data from a number of different sources that we learned about. And so hopefully we'll have all of that information for each community.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi,
Go ahead.
Karen. Yeah, thank you. So I have a similar question. So Royalston is smack in the middle of being connected with through Spectrum. At Charter/Spectrum, we have a program that's being funded with MBI money. So right now we have no connection at all, but we will be having some, within a year or so. How do we determine right now who is underserved? I mean, do we, because broadband is coming in, theoretically that will be solved, but will it be able to reach everybody? What about people who have really long driveways and can't afford to have spectrum come all the way down? I mean, are these the kinds of things that would be looked at in a planning process?
So yes, some of those things were mostly focusing on access. So yes, access is a prong of it. Availability, is it even available? And the skills to use it, the devices to use it. MBI has a program to figure out who isn't served by the wires. What we're doing is trying to get down to the residents to tell us, do they have access? Is their access bad? Do I know how to use the devices? Do I need training on even how to use a computer? I mean, these are the things that we're looking at, whereas MBI is looking more at the wires. Does that make sense? I know when we learned it, it didn't make sense.
Well, Karen, I guess my question is, we could say right now, no, we don't have access at all. Some people are on Starlink, some people are, on nothing or dial up or whatever. But supposedly there's a plan for that to change. I guess I don't know where we fall in this.
So I'd add one thing to what you're getting at, and by saying that we may not be able to get down to the individual level, but in the case of Royalston, knowing that there might be a lot of rural residents in a rural community where they do have long driveways, so we may not be able to get down and pinpoint each and every resident that has that situation, but if it's a situation that either affects now or will affect access in the future, even with what might be coming in. If there's a large population or group of people within Royalston that face that same issue, that would be something good to put into your plan because that might help to possibly get funding in the future to help to solve that issue, or at least identify that issue exists so that people are aware of it and we can help to plan for it in the future, finding a way to address it. But like I said, we might not be able to get down to the individual level of each and every person, but in Royalston, that might be a real issue. Whereas in a larger city, there might be other issues that are different. But in Royalston, that might be one issue that's particular to the town that would want to cover in a plan.
Thank you very much.
So Karen, I have a question. So this is to develop a plan, but the same funds are not used for the implementation of the plan. We would need to find another funding source for the implementation of the plan. Is that correct?
So you wouldn't have to find it. MBI is going to provide the funds, and I'm not sure how that part is going to work yet.
Okay, so the first step is to create a plan. And then the second step is that once the plan is created through this grant, that same grant is used for the implementation of the plan.
Right. And
They'll have a
then,
digital, sorry, go ahead, Karen.
so all of these municipal plans will be given to the state, and they're supposed to be creating a state plan, digital equity plan, in order to get the monies. So it's sort of all happening at the same time. We're planning, the state's planning, there's implementation already going on in other places.
So another question then is a kind of the community compact IT grant. I know it won't pay for planning, but is that a whole separate thing? Or are these funds sort of rolled into implementing community compact?
I don't think it's any part of community compact.
Okay,
But
all right.
I'm not sure though.
Yeah, what they told, I mean, so far, I mean, honestly, folks, this is so new. We're learning with you, and we're trying to get the information out as quickly as possible. And I believe, Karen, you're absolutely right. I don't think there's a combination of that money through community compact program. It's a separate bucket of ARPA money that I think the state is saying, we're going to create a statewide plan. We'd like to see your town plans or your regional plans or whatever. And, we want to incorporate that into the statewide plan. So with whatever bucket of money we have at the end of the day to implement some improvements in the system, we know where to go. We know that Royalston has this issue, and we know that, a Brockton has that issue, and a Pittsfield has this issue, and so on, and Gardner has this issue, and so on and so on. But they're looking for information, and they're doing it at a really high rate of speed, which is, I mean, honestly, there was a training session for Karen and her colleagues. Thank you, Karen, for putting up the plan in the chat there, the link to apply, which is where we're going. Communities can apply soon. We're trying to get the word out to say, hey, you can apply through this portal. There's some information you have to pull together. If you need help from us getting through the application process, let us know. I mean, that's a takeaway for all of you today. If you don't need help getting through the process, that's fine, but you pay us to help you. But I don't see any combination between the IT community compact and then this new bucket of money. And folks, I think this is another example of where there's a shed load of ARPA money and the BIL Act, and the Congress has for the last 2 years created a lot of legislation that created a lot of money and said U.S. Treasury, go print money, create programs at HUD and all these other programs to help our communities in this period of economic downturn during and post COVID. So we're just trying to help you get through a process, but there are some things we're still learning. And there was a good answer, by the way, folks, from staff on the upload download speed that Steve was talking about. And Steve, it's in a document somewhere. There's a minimum upload and minimum download speed that they want to see people achieve through the planning process and identify those pockets. And it's in one of the documents. It's 100 up, 50 down, or it's the other way. But we can get that to everyone posted.
Jeff, if you want to show some of those slides, I think there may be some answers on some of those slides.
Yeah, I can do that. And if is it possible to make me a presenter to share, or do you want to just pull them up and walk through? I can walk through them as you scroll through them. And so what I'll be doing is, Karen went through a little bit about what the program is and the reasons for it. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a plan might look like. Glenn just mentioned as a nice transition that we're here to help communities apply if they need it, and once they do apply, if they get funding, we have the capacity and the qualifications to do a plan for you. We'll be a contracted consultant through MBI to help implement some of this planning for our communities. And so I'll talk a little bit about what a plan might look like, the information we'll be gathering, and what will go into it.
You should be able to present now.
Okay.
His are much prettier than mine.
All right. Let me know. Does that look good? Is it in presentation mode?
No.
No. How's that?
It's there, but we see the next slide. If you don't care, that's fine.
Let me see. Haha, there we go.
There you go.
Is that better?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, good. Thanks, Karen. So yeah, just a little bit about the components that are going to go into a plan. We're looking at gathering information on the availability, affordability, and adoptability, or the 3 A's of digital equity. Some interesting facts. Approximately 32% of US households subscriptions are vulnerable, which means that they are unable to afford and maintain service. So they have access, but they're unable to afford and maintain the service necessary. Um, Similarly, you have 6 million K to 12 students that face adoption barriers outside of availability and affordability, which means there's something else preventing them from accessing the technology. It might be that the folks at home don't have the digital literacy to do it. It might be a language barrier or some other issue. But even in K through 12 now, students are more and more reliant upon digital equity and internet access to do their everyday, day-to-day schoolwork. And 9 million out of 37 million households that are eligible for the emergency broadband benefit, which is a reduced rate for internet access, only 9 million out of 37 million households that are eligible have actually applied. So that's a program that's out there that through the planning process, communities might be able to better share that information and get it out to the populations that are in need and that are eligible for that benefit. So if digital equity, the main goal is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in society, democracy, and our economy. And that is for everyday, day-to-day life now. For better or worse, we're dependent upon internet access, and at a minimum speed that we can do what we need to do. It's especially important, like I mentioned, for students and young people. But now it's not only students and people who are using the internet for work, but it's become an everyday part of our life. So digital divide is the issue. Digital inclusion is the work. We're trying to get everybody included in this process, and digital equity is the ultimate goal. This is just a slide showing the concept and the difference between equality and equity. You can see that you have 3 people of different heights, and if you stand each one of those people on a stack of 3 books, they're still going to have different heights. That would be equality. They get 3 books, that's equal. But what we're really looking at here and looking for is equity, and it's a situation where all people have the same access or equitable experience when it comes to digital internet access. And on the right, you can see what it looks like. The Digital Equity Act covers several populations, in particular, the individuals who live in covered household, aging individuals, incarcerated individuals, veterans, individuals with disabilities, language barriers, members of racial or ethnic minority groups, and individuals who primarily reside in rural areas, of which we have many here in the Montechusett region. So digital inclusion is the work. That's the charge that we're set out with here. The funds are available to develop a plan, an action plan, to try to identify these issues and come up with a plan for addressing them. These are just some of the key barriers to inclusion, whether it be the internet access, broadband access, whether it be devices or digital skills. These are things that we're going to learn more about within each community in doing the plan, whether it be a charrette or a more in-depth dive, like Karen mentioned, similar to a master plan chapter. We're going to conduct some research, we're going to conduct some outreach, and gather as much information for each community as we can. And finally, the solution is affordable broadband, appropriate devices, and digital literacy training that will lead to better adoptability. Where do regional councils come into play, or how do they come into play for digital equity? MRPC participated in some training to build capacity, and we have the skills and the staff to bring this service to our communities. And we have a good understanding of regional perspectives. We understand some of the different boundaries or barriers that might exist. We've spent time building relationships and trusts within our communities and throughout our region. We have experience in managing grants and implementing planning processes and reporting. And some key technical capacities that we have here in-house are data collection and analysis, community engagement, and policy and government affairs. All of these things will come into play in the digital equity planning process. So how does the plan come into play for each town or for each region or group of communities that might choose to go into it and do it together? We'll work together with the communities and produce a plan. MBI and the NDIA recommend that a digital equity plan should include these sections: introduction, vision for digital equity, section 2, collaboration, stakeholder engagement, and current state of digital equity, and defining objectives and implementation strategies, evaluation, and updates. Every plan will be unique, but one thing to mention here is that if communities are interested or if it's meaningful, in some cases communities share school districts in that particular case, or if there's a group of communities that often work together or have similar issues, these communities can consider applying together and work through the process in a more of a regional way rather than individual community. That's something that MRPC is open to and that MBI recommends. The planning process will be similar to many. We'll construct a plan in a way that works best for each community or region, and we'll develop a core planning team that will include stakeholders as well as town staff, municipal officials, and other interested parties or public. Will tailor the plan and collect engagement and data in a way that makes sense for each individual community. These are just some different tactics for making the plan your own. Like I said, every community's plan will be different. Storytelling is often important, really connecting with people and finding out what some of the real issues are. Similar to the short story or the quick comment we heard from Royalston, each community will have a different story, and individuals within a community will have specific stories, but an individual story most likely represents a larger group of people that share a similar story. The plan should highlight diversity within each community or region. We want to get down to learning what the general populations are, what some of the priority populations are, maybe some areas of the community or some population segments that have greater need, geography, culture, all of these different community settings that we typically gather when we're doing a plan will come into play here for digital equity planning as well. And finally, we'll develop a vision for digital equity. And that vision will be a community vision of what digital equity should look like within that individual community. And the mission is a general statement on how that vision will be achieved. And each community's vision and mission, again, will be unique to that community or group of communities regionally. Goals and values, we'll work on developing a set of goals and values for each community. And that's all I have. That's sort of the gist of what a plan will look like and what will go into planning and the capacity that MRPC has to serve our communities.
Does anybody have any additional questions?
I have one, and this is kind of unique to Townsend. We have a regional school district, but one of the towns is not part of the MRPC district. It would make sense, I think, to jointly apply, but is that even doable if, it's Pepperell and they're in the other region, Northeast or whatever it is. I don't even know.
Northern Middlesex Council of Governments.
Yeah.
Most of the RPAs in the state are participating as consultants in this, so I think we could work something out to
Okay,
work
so
with
working
NIMCOG and ourselves.
Yeah. All right. So it sounds to me like this is a plan. It's kind of like having an open space plan or a MVP plan. This is another type of plan. Will a town be at a disadvantage if they do not develop this type of plan in the future? A future disadvantage for applying for grants if this sort of plan is not in place?
What we were told by MBI during our training was that this is a once in a generation thing. There's a ton of money coming down, and if you don't do it now, it's never going to get done. And that there's so much money available to do it, you're recommended to just do it and get it fixed for everybody. Because the internet's not going away,
Right.
We all know.
Technology isn't going away, so all right.
And
Yeah,
a lot of our.
Just to Karen's point, sorry. These plans are also directly informing the state's digital equity plan. So this is the only real opportunity that each of the local municipalities have to have direct input on what the state is going to be receiving the federal funding towards doing. So when that happens, if there's any major projects or any major deficiencies or areas of that need addressing in the community, this is the best time to bring them to light and make sure they get the attention they need. Because if the town was to do a digital equity plan later on in a couple of years, which they can still do, they wouldn't. They would have just kind of missed the gate, as it were, and they still might be able to work towards accomplishing some of the goals in that plan with, like you said, community compact funds and stuff like that. But that big push to get everything kind of unified into one piece and get it all as much funded as possible all at once from the Digital Equity Act and everything else, that door might be shut for good at that point.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily know that communities would be at a disadvantage. We haven't been told that this will be tied to eligibility for anything else. But certainly communities that have it will be at an advantage because they will have a plan to back up any future grant funding that they might go towards. And we all know in any grant application that you're putting in, when you can refer to a plan that's been conducted through a community process, with community support and approval, it certainly puts you in a better position with that grant application for being successful. So I think communities we don't know if they'll be at a disadvantage, but they'll certainly be at an advantage where they have an opportunity for free money right now to develop a plan for a purpose that is critically important now and in the future. So it's something that communities should are encouraged to take advantage of, and certainly it'll be advantageous for the communities that do have the plan.
Did that answer your question, Veronica?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Deb, did you have a question?
Yes, and really thanks to MRPC. It's very reassuring to hear that you folks are kind of understanding the big picture and ready to help out. My question is about sort of what Jeff was just referring to, and that is what's the kind of, is there a time frame here? So let's say Royalston wants to engage in a local planning for this, and we put all the wheels in motion, we apply for the funding, we get our plan. Our plan then informs the state's plan. Do we have to wait for the state to have its plan all sorted out before we can then implement our own? I mean, are we talking about 2 years here, a year? Do you have any sense of that?
Our impression is that no, you're not going to have to wait until the state is done. I mean, you're going to have actionable recommendations, and from what we're getting from Josh Eichen at MBI is that this will all be done quickly.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Trevor?
The digital partnership program is the next program that will sort of be the implementation program, digital partnership program that will follow this digital equity planning program that they're running now. That will also be an MDI administered program and funding source.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, so I read through the information on the MBI webpage real quickly. I didn't a couple days ago, but is there a timeline for the application? Do you know?
I don't believe there's a deadline.
Is it a rolling application, you think? Or?
I believe it might be. I thought I don't want to give the wrong answer here, but I thought I did read that it's rolling, that it's open, and they're accepting applications. And at some point when they start to review and make awards, I believe it's still going to be rolling. But I apologize, Trevor. That's sort of a guess. We can look that information up and get back
I'll
to you
look it
for
up.
sure.
I just wonder if you knew off the top of your head. The other question I have is MRPC willing to apply on behalf of communities? Or are we going to be applying on our own?
It's an online
Yeah.
It's an online form, and I believe the community has to be the one to go through it. We can absolutely assist because there's data that they're asking for the community, so we can absolutely help with that. And it is a rolling application.
Thank you.
And the application is open now, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Correct. Yeah, and the application is it's an online form, and it's pretty straightforward, and they've made it as convenient as possible, I think. But like Karen mentioned, there is some information and data that they're asking for that we might hold some of that information or already have it or have access to it if the communities needed it. But if you have a look at it, it's a pretty straightforward process. They seem to really make it convenient and accessible for applying.
Okay, thank you.
And I have sort of an embarrassing technical question, Karen. I know you put the link in the chat, but once this webinar is over, does that link disappear? How do I get to that spot that you've linked us to once we're done here?
I can email the link to everyone that registered it. No problem at all.
Thank you.
Glenn, you have your hand up?
Thanks, Karen. Just a couple quick points on the scheduling of, hey, when's this have to be done? Karen and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. If this is ARPA money and ARPA money has to be obligated by a date in 24 and has to be expended by a certain date in 26, doesn't that put a timeline on when funds have to be expended to make the physical improvements? And then I have a follow-up. But Karen, would you touch on that, please, or Jeff, or both?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. It has to be spent by 26.
Right, and it's either June or December 26. I never remember the date, but anyway, it's 26 is the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we can email. I think it's always good to get Q&A on a program like this, and then just do a follow-up to people that attended with, hey, a few things came up. These are the answers we just found. I.e. The rolling app deadline and the other thing. The other item is that when you folks were talking about the actual application, I put in the chat the application page, which really starts. Where is it? Oh, where did it go? Anyway, okay, so there's the link I put in the chat. If you click on that, which, as Karen said, she'll send it out. It says Municipal Digital Equity Planning Program Overview. If you scroll down, you see a button that says Apply Today. So if anyone did this now, pardon me, today or tomorrow, this is to tie back to Trevor's comment. Then I'll stop talking. It's a fill in the blanker online, but when I looked at this and Karen looked at this, and I think Jeff did a week or two ago, it's pretty straightforward. However, especially communities without staff where they just want a little boost. Yeah, we'll fill in the blanks for you if you want. Karen already answered the question. We're here to help because they don't want you to go on, look up certain links, get some information. But we would, think of us as your staff in that point. If you want us to do the application online, then we would just ask to connect with somebody. Trevor, if it's you or sir, or if it's your economic development person, Deb and Royalston, if it's, you working with Jeff, and Veronica, if it's you working with Ryan Doherty. And we want to just connect with you and fill in the blanks properly. So we just make it a simple process and get you in line, because the last thing I'll say is I put in the comments at 12:45. The early bird gets the worm. The sooner you apply, the better off you are. And we, at the office, we apply for so many grants. We're just used to doing these things. So you pay an assessment. If we can help, we're here to assist. Thank you, Karen.
Any other questions? Okay. So I will email that link to you all after I hang up here. And thank you for coming, and I hope you take advantage of this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.